This project is construction of a headlight nacelle for my little motorcycles. The Harley nacelle is chrome-plated die-cast aluminum that's built in two halves. This molding is here to hide the joint. Nacelles built in the early 70s didn't have all this detail, and this skirt extended farther in to hide all this ugliness in here. I'll be working largely from memory on this project, but there are a few measurements that I can take. There's a relatively flat spot here and kind of a bulge in this area, and it has kind of a general barrel shape to it. The early nacelles were not chrome plated, they were buffed aluminum. They look quite nice for a few weeks. I'll be building my nacelle out of cold rolled sheet metal. A scribed center line will probably be useful later. The next step is to bend the metal into a cylindrical shape. And now to fuse the ends together. My renewable resource, which is sometimes referred to as a scrap bin, yielded this piece of aluminum, which is exactly the right size and shape to make the flat spot on top of the nacelle. I want the flat spot to line up with the top of the yoke. So I'll have to cut a 5/8 inch wedge off the cylinder. Now I have to cut a 1 3/8 inch wedge off the bottom to make the headlight perpendicular to the ground. My scribe center line is still perpendicular. Now I have to make a bulge in this area and a barrel shape on the side. To accomplish that, I'll use the simple English wheel that I designed for building the gas tanks. Using an English wheel requires a great deal of patience. Here's our bulge. The side has got a nice barrel shape to it. Sometimes you can feel or see better with your fingers than you can with your eyes. The mounting plate is made out of 18 gauge steel. Later on I'll drill mounting holes and tap them and cut a hole for the reflector and other hardware that has to be bolted on. For now, its job is to hold the workpiece perfectly round and add an element of rigidity. When working with sheet metal, I prefer to use silver solder because it requires a lot less heat than welding or brazing, and it minimizes the warping and buckling. I use a 000 tip and a carbonizing flame. To start the second piece, I've made a paper pattern and check to make sure it clears the frame. These edges have been cleaned up and filed to the scribe line. The hole is very near final size. There's extra metal in here which I need for making my bend. These edges all have extra metal around them. We'll worry about them later. This is a metal bending jig that I built. Of course, if you're bending steel, you have to push a little harder. If I'm going to form a 1/2 inch radius in here, I'm going to have to remove some material from this edge and also from this edge. And I've calculated that to be about 1/10 of an inch. By stretching the metal over this 1 inch bar, I can get a nice butt joint here that'll silver solder together with a minimum of finishing. I'll work in stitches. A stitch here, and work my way up to the top to avoid warping the structure. This is a special fixture I built for bending this panel. that about finishes it. So let's have a look. See what it looks like.